Hi, my name's Tony and I'm from the SIC company, and I'm here to tell you a little bit more about the all-new 2020 SIC RS 14x26 inflatable. So here it is, brand new for 2020, the SIC RS inflatable. And the design cues in this board are incredibly striking, and you can see that they lean very, very heavily on all the work and effort they put into the composite board. Now, the RS in 2019 was one of the most popular boards in our demo center in the composite form. We had a 26 and a 23-inch wide available to test. And they proved very popular indeed. Big queue of people always wanted to paddle on the RSs, mainly because they're very light and they just deliver performance that's really easy to access. And this, I'm really pleased to say, despite it being the 2020 newer model, those traits of just how easy it is to access the performance carry on through in the 2020 range. The 2020 design cues, though, that have come from the composite board feature very, very heavily in this. Just from the colorway alone, I think it's actually one of the best looking performance inflatables out there on the market. And what's really nice to see, and we'll discuss a little bit more as we do go from the nose down to the tail as we do in all of the SIC company videos, is they haven't relied a lot on paint and inks and so on. They've actually used color impregnated fabric, so the board is going to wear that much better over time and you're not going to see any fade in it. But look, let's take you through from the nose to the tail as we always do. So starting off at that nose, you can see that the overall width of the board really starts to fill out very, very quickly in the RS in a nice uniform fashion as it comes down to give very, very parallel rails that get quite to a fine point on the tail of the board, and it just screams performance. And this at 26 inches wide, it actually looks a little bit narrow, and I think the colorways have something to play into that, but it's a very, very svelte, very slippery looking shape, and that draws straight from the 2020 composite RS. But the nose itself, you can see there's a ridge line running under the center of the board, and that's the same on the underside as well. And that is a 3K carbon infused strip of material that runs the entire length of the board and on the underside. And that's providing a lot of rigidity when the board is at 20 PSI, as it can be inflated too. And that's just stiffening up the whole structure, because particularly in sprint phases on a performance board like this, boards can and do flex. Composite boards certainly do flex, and on an inflatable you just see that a little bit more. And something like that on a board of this ilk is really seeking to dampen that down and make sure that the performance and the power and the energy that you're putting into the board is being transferred into forward motion. A nice feature on the board, and we haven't seen it on any other brand's inflatables, is a camera mount, but one that actually integrates directly with the GoPro type clip tri-fin system, and it's a nice feature. But then also in there as well, they've managed to integrate a female thread, so it can take, you know, other rudimentary mounts from like Ram or Railblazer as well, and it's a really nice feature to see. And I'm sure that we'll probably see some other brands adopt it in their future boards. As we go back through the board though, yeah, as I alluded to already, you've got that color impregnated fabric there, and it's just those color changes aren't paint and inks. And the nice thing to see is that when you do start to roll an inflatable away and so on, after a period of time and ownership, they can crack, and we've seen that in the past. But with it being material, yeah, it looks like it's going to last a very, very long time and be as good looking as it is now, box fresh, out as it will probably be in 3, 4, 5 years time even. So yeah, hats off to SIC for that. But as we follow back through, we come back down after a short while to this nice diamond cut deck pad. And as with all SIC boards, even on the composite range, that they run these handles here, so if you're beach starting and so on, they make for very, very easy fare, grabbing the board, running down the beach, but also recovering the board from the water very, very quickly. A nice little touch that we haven't seen again on any other brand's boards is that on this bungee net system, which is always really popular and draws a lot of comments for on the RS boards, there's actually a tensioner. And the tensioner just allows you to really snug up the bungee and ensure that your kit and your bottles, and if you're running a map over an endurance event and so on, is going to stay very firm and secure underneath that bungee system. No great surprises, and a really nice comfortable carry handle there. It's quite fine, so it's not actually borrowing a lot of the standing area where you would be doing a lot of your footwork on the board. As we see with some other brands that tend to run either their handles outboard or perhaps, you know, additional supports down the outside, yeah, they've actually just kind of kept it very, very clean and simple. And to be honest, I'm a really big fan of that. As you work your way back down the board though, the diamond cut just runs all the way down. You have that crossover in terms of the colorways on the tail of the board, and they start to bring in the SIC branding there. The valve also, it's worth noting that it's probably about 12 inches off the tail of the board. Something probably to be mindful if your footwork is going to see you go all the way back to the tail. But what I do like is the leash point is very, very far. It's right on the tail of the board, so you're not going to have the leash get under your feet and all knotted up. And if you are wearing a waist leash, as I prefer, then yeah, the leash is going to stay high and clear and allow you to get right onto the tail of the board. But let's take the board now and roll it over onto its rail. So the board very, very clean underneath. You can see that 3K Fusion strip there, stringer running the entire length of the board. And I'm not sure if it will come out on camera, but it looks great, very, very smooth to touch. And it's just quite striking. It is, you know, carbon after all. The board though, as it runs back down to the fin box, it's a standard 6-inch US fin box. Comes with a SIC weedless fin design. I have to say it looks very much like a FCS 9-inch touring fin. But if you do want to put a slightly more performance focused orientated fin in the tail of the board, you do have that option with the US fin box. What's striking though is they put these two runners either side of the fin box, drawing again from the design cues at the bottom of the composite RS that runs this deep center channel towards the tail of the board. And it's just a nice, I think, hint to it. Does it do masses for performance? It probably helps stop with a little bit of sideways drift in the tail and just refining the water there. But to be honest with you, I think it's more of a design cue feature from the composite board. Overall though, with this extremely flat rocker line, this board is not going to be a slouch in flat water. I really, really like the overall outline of it and how it feels. It's exceptionally rigid, and it's also very lightweight. And I think that's worth bearing in mind as you start to look at performance boards like this, is weight. And what we find with a couple of brands now is they actually start to add so much material to the board in terms of trying to stiffen it up as much as possible. That comes at a price, and that's weight. And SIC kind of haven't fallen into that trap, and they've just done as much as possible in terms of stiffening, not too much in terms to add too much weight, but just enough to make the board really perform. So if you are looking for a performance 14-foot inflatable in 2020, I would give serious consideration to the SIC RS, and it's a great looking board. Thanks for watching our video. If you've got any questions about what you've seen, why not give us a call in the shop or head over to thesupco.com. If you want to stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure you subscribe up here. If you want to watch our next video, however, take a look up here.